Slow sucking sound of thick, oily, low-tide mud pulling at the rotting timbers of a half-submerged wooden hull. Accompanied by the metallic Morris of the Ark and Kelly. A massive rusted marine cemetery with dozens of historic wooden tugboats. Coal barges and diesel ferries lie partially sunken in the black mud. The rib like iron frames exposed to the freezing night sky. The heavy smell of creosote, decaying river silt, oxidized iron plate and diesel sheen and cold, salty coastal wind. Lock that cold rod loose loop straight onto the primary master rail. No commercial methods, no synthetic hi-hat rolls. Strictly raw industrial maritime decay from the forgotten edge of the outer borough. Listen close. Yeah, stepping past the warning sign where the shoreline sinks. So in raw, unfiltered prose where the water stinks. I chop the rider from loop till the metal bars crack. Drafting an unlisted blueprint on this desolate track. The flat one precision base walks through the salt-crusted silt while the rotting wood decks under my boots begin to tilt. The snare hits sharp like a rusted deck cleat snapping loose, delivering a heavy truth that the mainstream can't reduce. We don't bargain for the exposure or the temporary trend. We just document the marrow until the tape reels in. Just a shoreline shadow tracking ink on the rusted skin, leaving an authentic coordinate where the tides begin. Pull marine scrap, that marine scrap. Pull marine scrap. Cold clover rings echoing through the skeletal hull. Heavy drum configurations hitting while the night is dull. We keep the frequency sovereign at the river's mouth. Pure analog friction drifting to the deep swell. Cold clover rings echoing through the skeletal hull. Heavy drum configurations hitting while the night is dull. We keep the frequency sovereign at the river's mouth. Pure analog friction drifting to the deep south. Yeah, the shivering theremin drone hovers on a parallel stem. Got an archive of raw pressure that I'll never yield it am. Strict geographical focus tracking how the timber splits, cutting through the vanity before the power generator quits. We segment the minor scale until the playback ribbon slides, feeding raw unpolished knowledge to where the underground resides. A 12-bit rack mount unit punches with that authentic shipyard rust, the exact type of winter record that the critics distrust. Keep the heavy grease stained utility code zip tight to the throat, watching how the corporate entity struggles to stay afloat until there's nothing left but static on the master tape track. We defend the independent standards and we never look back. Marine scrap, marine scrap, marine scrap. Cold rings, cold rings echoing through the skeletal hull. Heavy drum configurations hitting while the night is dull. We keep the frequency sovereign at the river's mouth. Pure analog friction drifting to the deep south. Now the magnetic ribbon is winding down to the final turn, but the independent manuscript is safely locked in an urn. We leave the coordinates stamped deep in a rusted iron plate long after the superficial metrics seal their own fate. The kick drum is thumping like a heavy marine diesel stroke, a solid monument built from the unfiltered words that we spoke. The arraignment slowly dissolves into the morning harbor hum, a cold reminder of where the actual poetry comes from. Graveyard energy stays permanent, the focus is defined. The Arthur Kill Codex is the only signal left behind. We step off the listing deck and vanish in the marsh fog. Yeah. Graveyard logic. Let the vinyl static bleed out. Saturated tape friction. The Arthur Kill Codex. Staten Island oscillation. Yeah. 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 Lesson for the thin notes echoing through the tiled arch. Heavy drum machinery driving through the midnight march. Keep the frequency sovereign beneath the pavement line. Pure analog friction preserving the true design. As later on came shivering echo of a muted banjo, plug drenched in tape delay in the deep. Rumble more chorus sent bassline. Without a single second of delay, the 91 BPM drum break drops. The kick is punchy, raw, and heavily saturated at 60 hits, while the snare cracks with a sharp, dry wooden slap over a continuous blanket of crackling vinyl static. A gritty, low-tone voice speaks instantly. 3:04 a.m. standing on the curved dust-choked platform of the abandoned 1904 City Hall subway station, hidden deep beneath the bustling streets of Lower Manhattan. A subterranean masterpiece of Romanesque revival architecture, towering Guastavino arch ceilings covered in soot-stained green and tan tiles, elegant brass chandeliers hanging dead in the damp dark. The heavy smell of ozone, centuries of brake dust, wet brick working cold, pressurized tunnel air. Lock that woody whistle loop straight onto the primary sequence. No commercial gloss, no generic trap loop, strictly raw architecture, weight from the birthplace of the transit grid. Listen close. Stepping past the warning signs where the tunnel curves, calming the adrenaline and settling the nerves. I slice the bassoon loop till the wooden reed groans, etching timeless ciphers in these guys, the vino stones. The low hole rumble vibrates through the curved track while I map the blueprint that the industry would hack. The snare hits sharp like a pneumatic brake release, puncturing the silence of the subterranean peace. We don't negotiate for placements on their commercial charts. We just preserve the analog written these forgotten parts. Just a transit phantom dodging the active third rail spark, leaving an indelible stamp inside the historic dark. Listen for the M's, level or the power. Heavy drum machinery driving through the midnight march. Keep the frequency sovereign beneath the pavement line. Pure and analog friction, preserving the true design. Yeah. The shivering muted banjo pluck hovers on a parallel stem. Got a folder full of calculus that I won't yield them. Strict tactical observation, watching how the system rusts, refusing to dilute the thesis for their corporate trust. We segment the minor scale until the playback ribbon slides, feeding raw, unpolished knowledge to where the underground resides. The vented sample of punches with that authentic choke heat, the exact type of wind alleged that the radio can't repeat. Keep the heavy utility parker zip tight to the throat, watching how the mainstream struggles to stay afloat until there's nothing left but static on a master tape track. We defend the independent standards and we never look back. Listen for the habit, listen for the notes, stack the deck with who to talk. Heavy drum machinery driving through the midnight march. Keep the frequency sovereign beneath the pavement line. Pure and analog friction, preserving the true design. Now the magnetic ribbon is winding down to the final turn, but the independent manuscript is safely locked in the urn. We leave the coordinate stamped deep in the arch brick mold, long after the superficial metrics grow completely cold. The kick drum is thumping like an active transit train run, a rugged monument built where the sunlight is completely done. The arrangement slowly dissolves into the tunnel ventilation hum, a cold reminder of where the actual poetry comes from. Subterranean energy stays permanent, the focus is defined. The city hall codex is the only broadcast left behind. We slip through the emergency hatch and vanish in the gray. Yeah, loop logic. Let the vinyl static bleed out. Mention rated tape friction. Lesser harder medicine. Subterranean isolation. We out. Let the vinyl static bleed out. Saturated tape friction. City hall million. Subterranean isolation. We out.
The low.
3:02 a.m. standing inside a dripping concrete vault, the Battery Harris, the abandoned World War II coastal artillery bunker at Fort Tilden, on the windswept edge of the Rockaway Peninsula. Stepping through the gun embrasure where the concrete scales, documenting the collapse where the modern system fails. I chop the harp sequence till the nylon string snap, drafting an unlisted blueprint on this forgotten map. The low frequency and bass rumbles through the bunker wall while the ocean mist rises and the heavy shadows fall. The snare hits sharp like a rusted mortar breech locking, slicing clean through the plastic static they're broadcasting. We don't negotiate for space on their commercial dial, we just preserve the raw emotion on a secret file. Just a coastal sentry pacing through the dune grass code, writing the definitive ledger that was never sold. Haunting harp textures, drifting down an empty shell hoist. Heavy drum machinery knocking where the air is moist. We keep the frequency sovereign at the ocean's edge. Pure tape saturation carving out the final pledge. Yeah, the shivering mellotron pad hovers on the auxiliary send. Gotta crater all concepts that the mainstream cannot bend. Strict territorial focus index in the shoreline split, slicing through the illusions of the digital benefit. We segment the minor scale until the ferric layer flutters, delivering the heavy doctrine to the outcasts in the gutters. The 12-bit rack mount unit punches with the maritime dust, the exact type of winter broadcast that the critics distrust. Keep the heavy deck jacket button to the throat latch tight, watching how the city skyline glimmers in the distance tonight until the magnetic emulsion is scraped from the plastic base. We defend the raw execution in this forgotten space. Heavy hard textures drifting down an empty shell hoist. Heavy drum machinery knocking where the air is moist. We keep the frequency sovereign at the ocean's edge. Pure tape saturation carving out the final pledge. Haunting harp textures drifting down an empty shell hoist. Heavy drum machinery knocking where the air is moist. We keep the frequency sovereign at the ocean's edge. Pure tape saturation carving out the final pledge. Now the tape is running down to the raw cardboard core, but the manuscript remains secure on this desolate shore. We leave the coordinates engraved in the artillery mount long after the financial district stops its frantic count. The bass drum is thumping like a distant naval gun blast. A rugged
testament to the truth that'll always outlast. The arrangement slowly submerges into the crashing wave. Here's a cold reminder of the depth that the commercial channels miss. Perimeter energy stays absolute, the signal is clear. The battery protocol is the only transmission you hear. We slip through the doomed path and vanish in the coastal fog. Yeah. Fortress logic. Let the salt-crusted static bleed out. Saturated tape friction. The battery protocol. Perimeter secured. We out. The sharp mechanical snap of a tape deck button popping up, followed by absolute silence.
It's a terminal logic. The trolley terminal logic. The trolley terminal logic. The trolley terminal logic. The trolley terminal logic.
Yeah. 8:36 a.m. Standing deep in the subterranean darkness of the abandoned Essex Street trolley terminal, directly beneath Delancey Street on the lower east side of Manhattan. A sprawling, forgotten cobblestone cavern from 1908. Rows of rusted cast iron columns stretching into the shadows, decaying wooden trolley tracks rotting in the damp dirt. The heavy smell of ancient soot, wet brickwork, ozone and cold, pressurized tunnel air. Lock the hollow clarinet loop straight onto the master tape reel. No commercial compromises, no polished radio templates, strictly raw subterranean friction from the abandoned transit vaults. Listen close, listen close. Stepping past the concrete seal where the modern world ends, documenting the dark layout where the iron track bends. I chop the clarinet loop to the wooden reed splinters, sewing raw and polished scripts for these desolate winters. The heavy upright bass walks slow through the soot-stained bay, while the active subway rumble shakes the plastic decay. The snare hits sharp like a high voltage breaker snap, cutting straight through the garbage on their commercial map. We don't negotiate for placements or lease out the name, we just engrave the actual logic without playing the game. Just a midnight operator tracking lines in the damp air, exposing the skeletal system that the labels wouldn't dare. The trolley terminal. Holla clarinet tones echoing through the brickwork wall. Drum configurations driving without a single fault. We keep the frequency sovereign beneath the asphalt crust. Uncut acetate crackle breaking through the digital dust. Yeah, the shivering Soleil's chime hovers on a parallel track. Got a folder full of calculus that the editors would slash. Strict mechanical observation, watching how the metal warps, walking through the shadows of the old industrial cores. We segment the minor scale until the fabric ribbon flutters, delivering the heavy doctrine straight to the outcasts and gutters. The vintage sample of punches with that authentic track smoke, the exact type of winner record that the mainstream broke. Keep the heavy canvas utility jacket zip tight to the throat, watching how the corporate entity struggles to stay afloat until the magnetic emotion is scraped from the plastic base. We defend the raw execution in this forgotten space. The trolley terminal. Holla clarinet tones echoing through the brickwork wall. Drum configuration driving without a single fault. We keep the frequency sovereign beneath the asphalt crust. Uncut acetate crackle breaking through the digital dust. Now the tape is running down to the raw cardboard core, but the manuscript remains secure on this cobblestone floor. We leave the coordinates engraved deep in the iron column mold. Long after the superficial playlist numbers grow cold, the kick drum is stumping like a heavy steam generator stroke. A solid monument to the unfiltered truths that we spoke. The arrange slowly dissolves into the subway van hum, a cold reminder of where the actual poetry comes from. Subterranean energy stays permanent, the target is defined. The Delancey Codex is the only signal left behind. We slip through the emergency hatch and vanish in the night. Yeah, trolley terminal logic. Let the vinyl static bleed out. Saturated tape friction. The Delancey Codex. Grid isolated. We out. Yeah. Trolley terminal logic. Let the vinyl static bleed out. Saturated tape friction. The Delancey Codex. Grid isolated. We out.
slow rim cavern of slush and of icy harbor water press against a massive leaking iron casing gate. A company sting of a loose metal halyard striking an empty flagpole. A dusty low-pass filtered jazz French horn loop crawls out from the dark. Its brassy warm minor notes sweeping through heavy tape head saturation. And a slow analog delay. It is layered with a faint shivering vintage celeste pluck and a thick lumbering upright bass line that drags slightly behind the beat. Without a single second of delay, the 88 BPM drum break drops. The kick hits boxy raw and heavily saturated with MPC 6 and grit. While the snare cracks with a sharp dry wooden slap over a continuous blanket of vintage lacquer crackle. A gritty, low-tone voice speaks instantly. 3:33 a.m. standing deep inside the dry, echoing stone chasm, a dry dock going at the historic Brooklyn Navy Yard. A colossal empty basin carved out of massive granite blocks, an only body for the farm. Towering stone steps descending into the pitch black floor. The dark shape of the Manhattan Bridge looming in the foggy distance. The heavy smell of salt crust, old ship grease, wet timber, and freezing harbor wind. Lock that weeping French horn loop straight onto the master track sequence. No commercial compromises, no polished radio templates. Strictly raw, heavy maritime pressure from the historic heart of the waterfront. Listen close. Walking down the granite steps where the timber rots. Isolated signals in these unrecorded spots. I slice the French horn loop till the copper bell screams, puncturing the fabric of their artificial dreams. The heavy upright bass walks slow through the salt crusted floor while the tide water presses on the iron gate door. The snare snaps dry like a timber beam splitting in two. Etching raw coordinates for the dedicated few. We don't buy the digital shelf space or the paid reviews. We just paint the heavy canvas with the midnight blues. Just a harbor shadow tracing rust on the ancient keel, keeping the perspective honest, grinding on the real. The mournful brass echoes bouncing off the stone wall. Raw drum configurations knocking while the tides fall. We keep the frequency locked in the deep harbor freeze. Uncut acetate grit moving through the cold breeze. Yeah, the shivering celeste tone floats on the auxiliary lane, isolating true expression from their commercial chain. Cold tactical design, watching how the harbor lines rust, reducing all the calculated garbage into dust. We segment the minor scale till the tape starts to drag, delivering the heavy scripture in a rugged canvas bag. A 12-bit drum sample of hits with that raw shipyard heat, the exact type of winter ledger that the radio can't defeat. Keep the grease-stained deck jacket buttoned to the chin, watching how the corporate sharks try to slide the schemes in until the magnetic strip is worn down to the plastic thread. We hold the perimeter secure where the cautious fear to tread. On for brass echoes bouncing off the stone wall. Raw drum configurations knocking while the tides fall. We keep the frequency locked in the deep harbor freeze. Uncut acetate grit moving through the cold breeze. Now the tape is spinning close to the final metal guide, but the narrative is safely locked against the rising tide. We leave the calculation stamped in the heavy granite block. Long after the digital network stops its frantic clock, the kick drum is thumping like a heavy steam hammer blow. A rugged monument we're recorded where the deep waters flow. The arrangement slowly fades into the cold harbor mist. A stark documentation of the frequency they miss. Navy Yard logic is permanent, the syntax is tight. The dry dock codex is the only signal in the night. We scale the rusted gangway and dissolve in the grave. Yeah. Dry dock logic. Let the vinyl static bleed out. Dry dock codex. Harbor oscillation. We out. Dry dock logic. Let the vinyl static bleed out. Dry dock codex, harbor oscillation. Of a freezing night wind rushing through hollow concrete elevator shafts, followed by the dry metallic relic oxidized steel suspension cables slapping into massive circular iron ring. A dusty low-pass filtered jazz accordion loop crawls from the shadows, its internal reed squeaking with a slow morning minor key waltz that warps with severe tape speed fluctuation. It is laid with a faint shivering toy piano chime and a deep lumbering analog-sim bass drone. Without a single second of delay, the 89 BPM drum break drops. The kick hits muddy, compressed, and laden with sub-bass weight. The snare snaps with a dry, unquantized wooden crack over a continuous blanket of crackling shellac dust. A gritty, low-tone voice speaks instantly.
3:52 a.m. standing directly on a crack, weed choked terrazzo mat floor beneath the towering, decaying concrete pillars of the New York State Pavilion in Flushing Meadows, Queens. 3 colossal retro-futuristic observation towers rotting in the midnight fog. Rusted steel cables of the tent of tomorrow hanging like a broken spider web against the sky. The heavy smell of damp moss, old asphalt oxidized yellow paint, and cold marsh air. Lock that wheezing accordion loop straight into the primary output bus. No glossy sim pads, no polished commercial formulas, strictly raw skeletal architecture from the ruins of the World's Fair. Listen close. Navigating the circular ring where the pillars rise, stripping the glitter from the artificial skies. I segment the reed tones till the bellows gasp for air, spitting unpolished doctrine on its rotting terrace stair. The sub-bass rumble vibrates through the hollow concrete column while the track maintains a perspective that is cold and solemn. The snare crack hits like a concrete block dropping off the ledge, cutting directly through the fabricated marketing edge. We don't buy the digital real estate or rent the fame, we just carve an honest blueprint with an unlisted name. Just a nocturnal shadow sketching lines in the damp mist, preserving the raw velocity that the algorithms miss. Yeah. On accordion folds, drifting through the steel frame. Heavy drum breaks driving while the city forgets the name. We keep the signal sovereign underneath the rusted dome. Pure and analog friction claiming the underground home. Yeah. On accordion folds, drifting through the steel frame. Heavy drum breaks driving while the city forgets the name. We keep the signal sovereign underneath the rusted dome. Pure and analog friction claiming the underground home. Yeah, the shivering toy piano keys hover on a parallel line, keeping the frequency isolated from their mainstream design. Strict territorial mapping, watching how the metal scales, documenting the precise point where the corporate logic fails. We slice the minor cadence till the playback head distorts, delivering the raw scriptures to the forgotten chords. The vintage sampler punches with that authentic Queen's dust, the exact type of winner record that the critics distrust. Keep the heavy nylon bomber zip tight to the chin, watching how the industry lets the plastic culture win until the magnetic ribbon runs completely off the core. We defend the raw standard on this isolated floor. Yeah. More accordion folds, drifting through the steel frame. Heavy drum breaks driving while the city forgets the name. We keep the signal sovereign underneath the rusted dome. Pure and analog friction claiming the underground home. More accordion folds, drifting through the steel frame. Heavy drum breaks driving while the city forgets the name. We keep the signal sovereign underneath the rusted dome. Pure and analog friction claiming the underground home. Now the oxide ribbon hits the end of the aluminum spool, but the lexicon remains unbroken by the commercial rule. We leave the equations etched deep in the concrete base long after the superficial trends vanish without a trace. The kick drum is thumping like a structural cable snap, a solid monument plotted on our independent map. The arrangement slowly submerges into early morning hum, a stark reminder of where the actual poetry comes from. Pavilion energy stays permanent, the focus is refined. The relic protocol is the only broadcast left behind. We step through the perimeter gate and vanish in the gray. Yeah, Pavilion logic. Let the vinyl static bleed out. Skeletal architecture. The relic protocol. Flushing Meadows frequency. We out. Yeah. Pure analog friction claiming the underground home. Pavilion logic. Let the vinyl static bleed out. Skeletal architecture. The relic protocol. Flushing Meadows frequency. We out.
Rumble of an Amtrak train roaring down an adjacent active track, accompanied by the salt breaking me shaking deep in the dark, and the slow and dusty low pass filter jazz trombone loop crawls out from the shadows. It's sliding brassy minor key phrases warbling with heavy tape head saturation and a long cabinet plate reverb. It is layered with the faint shivering pluck of a detuned classical guitar and a deep lumbering analog synth bass line. Without a single second of delay, the 91 BPM drum break drops. The kick is muddy, compressed and laden with sub-bass weight, while the snare cracks with a sharp drop with a snap over a continuous layer of thick crackling vinyl dust. A gritty low-tone voice speaks instantly. 3:11 a.m. Standing in the pitch black cavernous expanse of the Freedom Tunnel, the legendary subterranean rail passage stretching directly beneath Riverside Park on Manhattan's Upper West Side. A massive concrete arch gallery with shafts of midnight moonlight pierce through Wine Street, level grades far overhead. Decade of historic graffiti murals looking down like silent ghosts from the soot-stained walls. The heavy smell of damp earth, diesel exhaust, fresh acrylic lacquer and cold pressurized tunnel wind. Lock the sliding trombone loop straight
straight into the primary channel strip. No glossy studio tricks, no synthetic hi-hat pattern, strictly raw underground monumentality from the heart of the island's bedrock. Listen close. Yeah, listen close. Stabbing along the ties where the iron rails align, documenting the concrete where the shadows intertwine. I chop the trombone phrase till the brass notes weep, drafting sovereign blueprints while the city is asleep. The heavy synth bass rumbles through the ballast stone while I map the dark coordinates entirely alone. The snare hits sharp like a steel hat, shutting tight, slicing through the plastic noise they broadcast in the night. We don't negotiate for space on their commercial wave, we just preserve the raw emotion in this concrete cave. Just a midnight rider dodging the third rail spark, leaving permanent signatures inside the historic dark. Fishing more drum slides echoing through the arch vault. Heavy drum machinery knocking without a single fault. We keep the signal sovereign beneath the park ground. Pure aeronautic friction, generating the true sound. Yeah. The shivering classical guitar pluck covers on the parallel track. Gotta create a raw concepts that the mainstream can't hijack. Strict territorial focus, indexing the subterranean line, refusing to dilute the thesis for their corporate design. We segment the minor scale until the tape pad flutters, delivering the heavy doctrine straight to the gutters. The 12-bit rack mount unit thumps with that authentic track dust, the exact type of winner record that the critics distrust. Keep the heavy utility jacket button to the throat latch tight, watching how the street level traffic glimmers in the great light until the magnetic emulsion is scraped from the plastic base. We defend the raw execution in this forgotten space. Yeah. Pressure long drone slides echoing through the arch vault. Heavy drum machinery knocking without a single fault. We keep the signal sovereign beneath the park ground. Pure aeronautic friction, generating the true sound. Yeah. Some more frontal swine bone slide echoing through the arch vault. Heavy drum machinery knocking without a single fault. We keep the signal sovereign beneath the park ground. Pure aeronautic friction, generating the true sound. Now the tape is running down to the raw cardboard, but the manuscript remains secure on this gravel floor. We leave the coordinates engraved deep in the concrete pier, long after the superficial metrics of the city disappear. The kick drum is thumping like a distant steel wheel roar, a rugged monument recorded where the wild spirit soar. The arrangement slowly dissolves into the dark tunnel hiss, a cold reminder of the depth that the pop channels miss. Tunnel energy stays permanent, the target is defined. The freedom codex is the only signal left behind. We slip through the exit portal and vanish in the gray. Yeah. Tunnel logic, let the vinyl static bleed out. Saturated tape friction, the freedom codex, subterranean frequency. We out. Yeah. Tunnel logic. Let the vinyl static bleed out. Saturated tape friction, the freedom codex, subterranean frequency. We out.
Whistling sharply through the rusted 5-story steel hangar doors, followed by the heavy rim flap of a shredded canvas tarp against a cane fuselage. The dry crunch of broken hangar glass under a thick boot sole. A dusty, low-pass, filtered hammer dulcimer loop crawls out from the dark. Its metallic wire strings feather cover matters to play a cold, weeping minor cadence that warps with tape wild and flutter. It is layered with a faint, shivering vintage Farfisa organ drone and a deep, lumbering electric bass line that drops with an unquantized lag. Without a single second of delay, the 89 BPM drum break drops. The kick hits sub-heavy, raw, and saturated with MPC 6-speed warmth, while the snare snaps with a dry wooden paper thin thud over a continuous layer of thick vinyl surface noise. A gritty, low-tone voice speaks instantly.
3:18 a.m. standing deep inside the cavernous rotting steel frame of hangar B at Floyd Bennett Field, Brooklyn's abandoned historic airfield on the desolate edge of Marine Park. A colossal echoing aviation tomb with rusted radio engines lie in the oil-stained dust. Shattered cockpit glass lit by the cold moon. Empty runway stretching out into the dark waters of Jamaica Bay. The heavy smell of old aviation fuel, wet insulation, salt marsh, grass, and freezing coastal fog. Lock that weeping hammer, dulcimer loop straight onto the primary master rail. No industry paint by numbers, no polished radio template, strictly raw windswept aviation decay from the forgotten edge of the borough. Listen close.
AV dulcimer notes echoing through the hangar bay. Heavy drum configurations hitting while the skies turn gray. We keep the frequency sovereign at the ocean's edge. Uncut acetate crackle executing the final pledge.
Yeah, the shivering fall is a drone hovers on a parallel track. Got a dossier of raw pressure that the editors will slash. Strict mechanical focus, watching how the fuselage splits, slicing through the fabric before the power station quits. We chop the minor interval until the playback ribbon slides, feeding raw unpolished knowledge to where the underground resides. A bench sample of punches with that authentic king of dust, the exact type of winner record that the critics distrust. Keep the heavy flight jacket button tight to the throat, watching how the corporate entity struggles to stay afloat until the magnetic ribbon runs completely off the brass wheel. We maintain the raw execution on this independent reel.
Reducing my notes echoing through the hangar bay. Heavy drum configurations hitting while the skies turn gray. We keep the frequency sovereign at the ocean's edge. Uncut acid, they crackle, executing the final pledge.
Yeah, now the magnetic ribbon is winding down to the final turn. The independent manuscript is safely locked in the urn. We leave the coordinates stamped deep in the steel truss beam, long after the metropolis wakes up from its digital dream. The kick drum is thumping like a radial engine stroke, a solid monument to the unfiltered statements that we spoke. The arrangement slowly dissolves into the bay tide hum, a cold reminder of where the actual poetry comes from. Airstrip energy stay permanent, the target is defined. The hanger codex is the only signal left behind. We step through the broken hangar doors and vanish in the mist.
Heavy dose of my notes echoing through the hangar bay. Heavy drum configurations hitting while the skies turn gray. We keep the frequency sovereign at the ocean's edge. Uncut acids, they crackle, executing the final word.
Yeah, aviation logic. Let the vinyl static bleed out. Saturated tape friction. The hanger codex. Field isolated. We out. We out. The heavy hollow groaning of massive steel roof trusses shifting under the pressure of a freezing northern wind, followed by the M deep inside the cavernous rusting steel and brick carcass of the abandoned Glenwood Power Station, sitting directly on the edge of the Hudson River. A colossal decaying industrial cathedral from 1906. Massive turbine halls flooded with brackish river water. Towering iron frame windows smashed to pieces. Giant rusted coal conveyors hanging like dead limbs overhead. The heavy smell of wet river moss, grease-soaked concrete, ozone, and cold Hudson wind. Locked at raspy baritone sax loop straight onto the master track reel. No commercial gloss, no polished radio templates. Strictly raw, heavy industrial friction from the forgotten power grid. Listen close. Stepping through the shattered frame where the river meets the stone, documenting the cold fallout in this heavy metal zone. I chop the baritone sax till the brass reed splits, forging a gritty blueprint where the raw reality fits. The distorted electric bass is shaking through the concrete pile, while the city lights across the water stretch for a mile. The snare hits dry like a high voltage switch throwing cold, preserving a hidden independent story that was never told. We bypassed the mainstream channels and the playlist hype. We just engraved the actual logic in its purest type. Just a midnight operator tracking lines in the damp air, exposing the skeletal system that the labels wouldn't dare. Raspy sax textures echoing through the turbine floor. Heavy drum configurations knocking the rusted iron door. We keep the frequency sovereign inside the concrete shell. Uncut acid, they crackle, breaking the commercial spell. Yeah, the shivering quack and spell chime hovers on a parallel track. Got a folder full of calculus that the editors would slash. Strict mechanical observation, watching how the metal warps, walking through the shadows of the old industrial cores. We segment the minor scale until the ferric ribbon flutters, delivering the heavy doctrine straight to the outcasts and gutters. The vintage sample of punches with that authentic boiler smoke. The exact type of winner broadcast to the mainstream bro. Keep the heavy oilskin coat, zip tight against the river breeze, watching how the corporate entity makes the independent freeze until the magnetic emulsion is scraped from the plastic base. We defend the raw execution in this forgotten space. Raspy sax textures echoing through the turbine floor. Heavy drum configurations knocking the rusted iron door. We keep the frequency sovereign inside the concrete shell. Uncut acid, they crackle, breaking the commercial spell. Now the tape is running down to the raw cardboard core, but the manuscript remains secure on this desolate shore. We leave the coordinates engraved deep in the brickwork mold. Long after the superficial platelets numbers grow cold, the kick drum is thumping like a heavy steam generator. Stroke a solid monument to the unfiltered truths that we spoke. The arraignment slowly dissolves into the morning tide hum, a cold reminder of where the actual poetry comes from. Industrial energy stays permanent, the target is defined. The Glenwood Codex is the only signal left behind. We slip through the perimeter fence and vanish in the mist. mist. Yeah. Powerhouse logic. Let the vinyl static bleed out. Saturated tape friction. The Glenwood Codex. Grid isolate, be out. We out.
The dark erection of the treacherous East River. East Channel current slam against crumbling granite seawalls. In the dusty low.
3:15 a.m. standing inside the hollow skeletal stone ruins of the abandoned Renwick Smallpox Hospital on the southern tip of Roosevelt Island. A towering Gothic revival granite fortress swallowed by creeping ivy in the midnight fog. Empty pointed arch windows framing the glowing Manhattan skyline across the dark water. The heavy smell of wet river moss, decaying limestone, salt air, and freezing river wine like that weeping cellar loop straight onto the master track sequence. No commercial methods, no industry shortcuts, strictly raw Gothic friction from the island corridor. Listen close. Stepping through the Gothic arch where the masonry bleeds, planted deep in the terrain where the concrete recedes. I slice the cello sequence till the wood fiber cracks, leaving permanent black ink on they artificial tracks. The low frequency flat wound bass vibrates through the ground while the river mist swallows every superficial sound. The snare hits sharp like a granite block splitting in two, delivering the raw blueprints to the dedicated few. We don't bargain for the metrics or the digital praise. We just document the marrow as the century decays. Just a midnight phantom watching how the skyline shines, leaving an authentic signal in these localized designs. The island corridor, more for cello strings echoing through the hollow stone. Heavy drum machinery driving while the wind begins to moan. We keep the broadcast unlinked from the commercial wire. The island corridor, more for cello strings echoing through the hollow stone. Heavy drum machinery driving while the wind begins to moan. We keep the broadcast unlinked from the commercial wire. Yeah, the shivering road chime hovers on a parallel stem. Got a folder full of calculus that I won't leak to them. Strict territorial mapping, watching how the river divides, slicing straight through the illusions where the mainstream resides. We segment the minor scale until the playback tape flutters, delivering the heavy doctrine to the outcasts and gutters. The 12 sampler punches with that authentic stone dust, the exact type of winner record that the critics distrust. Keep the canvas deck jacket zipped tight to the jaw, watching how the corporate market tries to capitalize the raw until there's nothing left but static on a master tape spool. We preserve the independent standard under midnight rule. The island corridor, more for cello strings echoing through the hollow stone. Heavy drum machinery driving while the wind begins to moan. We keep a broadcast unlinked from the commercial wire. The island corridor, more for cello strings echoing through the hollow stone. Heavy drum machinery driving while the wind begins to moan. We keep the broadcast unlinked from the commercial. Now the magnetic ribbon is winding down to the final turn, but the independent manuscript is safely locked in the urn. We leave the coordinates stamped deep in the granite wall, long after the superficial towers of the empire fall. The kick drum is thumping like a heavy cargo ship engine stroke, a solid monument built from the unfiltered words that we spoke. The arrangement slowly dissolves into the morning harbor hum, a cold reminder of where the actual poetry comes from. Island energy stays permanent, the target is defined. The Renwick Codex is the only signal left behind. We step through the iron gate and vanish in the mist. Yeah. Let the vinyl static bleed out. Saturated tape friction. Roosevelt Island frequency. We out.
Yeah. The dry skeletal rustling of overgrown briars, scratching and caught a spy prick with further distillates you. Hospital tuberculosis sanatorium, deep in the dark, dense woods of the Staten Island Greenbelt. A massive, decaying complex of historic brick pavilions, swallowed by the forest. Empty sun porches where patients once sat looking into the trees. Collapsed clay tile roofs, the heavy smell of damn pine needles. Wet moldy stucco, rusted iron radiator pipes, and cold woolen fog. Lock that muted trumpet sequence straight into the primary output bus. No commercial compromises, no polished playlist templates.
Strictly raw, isolated friction from the forgotten sanatorium in the hills. Listen close, listen close, listen close. Stepping through the shattered frame where the stucco peels, unlinking my connection from the corporate deals. I chop the trumpet loop to the hum of mute distorts, drafting independent files in these forgotten chords. The heavy upright bass walks through the plaster dust while the iron radiator brackets bleed with rust. The snare hits sharp like a rotten floorboard snapping down, far away from the bright illusions of the downtown. We don't chase the digital stream or the temporary trend. We just document the marrow to the tape reels, and just a woodland phantom leaving tracks in the damn clay, keeping the perspective honest, fading in the gray. It's trumpet notes fading through the forest pine, heavy drum machinery knocking on the borderline. We keep the frequency sovereign underneath the canopy, pure tape saturation preserving the sanity. The trumpet notes fading through the forest pine, heavy drum machinery knocking on the borderline. We keep the frequency sovereign underneath the canopy, pure tape saturation preserving the sanity. Yeah, the shivering marimba chime hovers on a parallel lane, keeping expression isolated from the mainstream chain. Cold geographical focus, watching how the brickwork splits, cutting through the vanity before the power generator quits. We segment the minor scale until the playback ribbon slides, feeding raw and polished knowledge to where the underground resides. The vintage sampler punches with that authentic forest smoke, the exact type of winter record that the radio broke. Keep the heavy wool utility coat zipped tight to the chin, watching how the corporate entity lets the plastic culture win until the magnetic emulsion is straight from the plastic base. We defend the execution in this forgotten space. Trumpet notes faded through the forest pine, heavy drum machinery knocking on the borderline. We keep the frequency sovereign underneath the canopy, pure tape saturation preserving the sanity. Knew the trumpet notes fading through the forest pine, heavy drum machinery knocking on the borderline. We keep the frequency sovereign underneath the canopy, pure tape saturation preserving the sanity. Now the magnetic ribbon is winding down to the final turn, but the independent manuscript is safely locked in the urn. We leave the cord and it's stamped deep in the brickwork mold, long after the superficial metrics grow completely cold. The kick drum is thumping like a heavy boiler valve release, a rugged monument built where the modern distraction cease. The arrangement slowly dissolves into the morning one hum, a cold reminder of where the actual poetry comes from. Sanatorium energy stays permanent, the focus is defined. The CV codex is the only signal left behind. We step into the thick brush and vanish in the mist. Yeah, sanatorium logic. Let the vinyl static bleed out. The C-View codex, Greenbelt isolation. Trumpet notes. Yeah. Sanatorium logic. Let the vinyl static bleed out. The C-View codex, Greenbelt isolation. We out. Iron dry dock gate holding back the dark, surging waters of Wallabout Bay, followed by the rivy hollow clank of a rusted crane pulley swinging in the harbor wind. A dusty low pass filter jazz oboe loop crawls out from the dark. It's nasal, minor key drone warbling with severe tape head saturation and a slow and analog tape echo. It is layered with the faint shivering chime of a vintage Rode Electric and a deep dragon flat wound Fender jazz bass line. Without a single second of delay, the 93 BPM drum break drops. The kick is boxy, deep and heavily saturated at 60 hits, while the snare cracks with a dry metallic ring over a continuous blanket of crackling vinyl static. A gritty, low-tone voice speaks intensely. 3:14 a.m. standing on the rusted iron ledge of Dry Dock 4 inside the historic semi-abandoned industrial sectors of the Brooklyn Navy Yard. A colossal concrete line canyon carved into the shoreline. Massive empty machine shops with broken steel frame windows towering into the fog. The skeletal silhouettes of old hammerhead cranes looming overhead. The heavy smell of marine grease, wet iron oxide, cold sit salt water and freezing harbor wind. Lock the weeping noble sequence straight onto the primary master track. No artificial radio sheen, no cheap digital presets. Strictly raw industrial gravity from the shipyard ruins. Listen close, stepping through the shadow where the iron plate and bleeds. Sewing raw and varnished prose where the shoreline recedes. A slice the oboe sequence till the wooden reed splits. Forging a heavy blueprint where the actual culture fits. The flat one bass is driving low through the concrete floor, while a cold harbor wind rattles the generator door. The snare snaps vicious like a heavy steel cable breaking, cutting straight through the stereo tracks the mainstream is making. We don't seek the commercial light or the playlist that slots. We just carve the actual cipher in these forgotten spots. just a midnight operator dodging the Navy Yard patrol, leaving permanent ink on their fragile digital control. Yeah, mondo oboe tones echoing through the dry dock wall, heavy drum machinery driving while the empires fall. We keep the frequency sovereign where the dark tides meet, pure and analog friction driving through the freezing shit. Yeah, the shivering rose chime hovers on a parallel stem, got an archival pressure that I'll never yield to them. Strict territorial focus, indexing the waterfront division, refusing to dilute the thesis for their corporate vision. We chop the minor interval until the playback ribbon slides, feeding raw unpolished knowledge to where the underground resides. The vintage sampler thumps with that authentic boiler smoke, the exact type of window blueprint that the radio broke. Keep the heavy deck jacket zipped tight to the jaw, watching how the industry struggles to replicate the raw until there's nothing left but static on a master tape track. We preserve the raw execution and we never look back. Yeah, Martha Robo tones echoing through the dry dock wall, heavy drum machinery driving while the empires fall. We keep the frequency sovereign where the dark tides meet, pure and analog friction driving through the freezing sleet. Now the magnetic ribbon is winding down to the final turn, but the independent manuscript is safely locked in the urn. We leave the coordinates stamped deep in the concrete beam, long after the metropolis wakes up from its digital dream. The kick drum is thumping like a heavy marine engine stroke, a solid monument built from the unfiltered words that we spoke. The arrangement slowly dissolves into the morning tide hum, a cold reminder of where the actual poetry comes from. Shipyard energy stays permanent, the target is defined. The Wild About Codex is the only broadcast left behind. We slip through the perimeter gate and vanish in the gray. Yeah, shipyard logic, let the vinyl static bleed out. Saturated tape friction, Wild About Codex, yard isolated. We out. Yard isolated. Yeah. Shipyard logic. Let the vinyl static bleed out. Saturated tape friction. Wild About Codex. Yard isolated. We out. Yeah. The distant metallic rumble of an Amtrak engine vibrating through massive concrete slabs overhead, followed by the dry, hollow echoing water dripping on the rusted steel tracks from a dusty low-pass filter. Water damage spinning piano loop crawls out from the dark. It's the tune keys striking a slow, dragging minor fifth waltz to warps with heavy tape, wow and flutter. It is layered with a faint shiver in analog subdiscipline, some bass hum and a thick walking pull-on. Without a single second of delay, the 91 BPM drum break drops. The kick is punchy, raw, and saturated with MPC 60 grit, while the snare snaps with a dry and quantized wooden crack over a continuous blanket of vintage vinyl surface noise. 8:37 a.m. Yeah, stepping through the steel hatch where the daylight divides, documenting every shadow where the underground hides. I chop the spinning loop till the wooden hammers fracture, weaving a dense tapestry that the charts can't manufacture. The low pump now vibrates through the ballast stone while I decode the static in the subterranean zone. The snare snaps vicious like a third rail circuit spark, slicing straight through the heavy silence of the dark. We don't chase the algorithm or the virtual hype, we just engrave the actual logic in its purest type. Just an unlisted name tracing footprints in the soot, leaving an indelible mark where the corporate can't foot.
Freedom galleries drifting down a concrete shaft, heavy drum arrangements driving through the rugged crowd. We keep the frequency sovereign beneath the park ground.
Uncut acetate crackle, preserving the authentic sound. Stepping through the steel hatch where the daylight divides, documenting every shadow where the underground hides. I chop the spin loop till the wooden hammers fracture, weaving a dense tapestry that the charts can't manufacture. The low appointments vibrates through the ballast stone while I decode the static in the subterranean zone. The snare snaps vicious like a third rail circuit spark, slicing straight through the heavy silence of the dark. We don't chase the algorithm or the virtual hype, we just engrave the actual logic in its purest type. Just an unlisted name tracing footprints in the soot, leaving an indelible mark where the corporate can't foot.
Freedom galleries drifting down a concrete shaft, heavy drum arrangements driving through the rugged crowd. We keep the frequency sovereign beneath the park ground. Uncut acetate crackle, preserving the authentic sound.
Yeah, the shiverance and hum hovers on the parallel track. Got a dossier of raw pressure that the editors can't pack. Strict tactical observation, watching how the pavement divides, refusing to dilute the thesis where the consensus resides. We segment the minor scale until the playback tape flutters, feeding raw definitions directly to the outcasts and gutters. The vintage sampler hits with that authentic kid raw smoke, the exact type of winner blueprint that the mainstream broke. Keep the heavy wool collar flipped against the tunnel draft, defending the integrity of this independent craft.
until the oxide ribbon runs completely off the brass wheel. We maintain a raw standard on this independent reel.
Freedom galleries drifting down a concrete shaft. Heavy drum arrangements driving through the rugged craft. We keep the frequency sovereign beneath the park ground. Uncut acetate crackle, preserving the authentic sound.
Now the magnetic ribbon is winding down to the final turn, but the lexicon remains intact for the elements to burn. We leave the coordinates stamped deep in the concrete beam, long after the metropolis wakes up from its digital dream. The kick drum is thumping like a heavy cargo train break, a silent monument to the unfiltered statements that we make. The derangement slowly dissolves into the tunnel ventilation. Hits a cold testament to the depth that the commercial channels miss. Subterranean and stays permanent. The target is defined. The freedom protocol is the only broadcast left behind. We scale the iron ladder and vanish in the midnight mist. Yeah, tunnel logic.
Tunnel logic.
Let the vinyl static bleed out.
Freedom gallery.
Saturated tape friction.
Freedom protocol.
Grid isolated. We out. We out. Yeah. Tunnel logic. Let the vinyl static bleed out. Saturated tape friction. Freedom protocol. Grid isolated. We out. We out.
The deafening metallic screech of a rusted overhead gantry crane shifting slowly on oxidized tracks. High above, followed by the sudden fluttering echo of a flock of pigeons. Skylight, a dusty low-pass filter jazz viol loop crawls out from the dark. It's scraping double stop minor key phrases, warbling with heavy tape head grime and a slow and analog spring reverb. It is layered with a faint shivering vintage electric pletry cruise note and a thick lumber and improving bass line that drags with an unquantized lag. Without a single second of delay, the 94 BPM drum break drops. The kick hits boxy deep and heavily saturated at the low mid frequency, while the snare cracks with a sharp dry wooden rim shot over a continuous layer of thick lacquer crackle. A gritty, low tone voice speaks instantly. 3:41 AM, standing on a rusted iron catwalk suspended high inside the cavernous concrete atrium of Building B at the abandoned Brooklyn Army Terminal in Sunset Park. A colossal 8-story industrial chasm with massive offset concrete balconies stagger up into the pitch black ceiling like giant stone shells. Old freight train tracks running directly through the center of the dust-choked ground floor below. The heavy smell of machine oil, wet concrete, rotting timber pallets, and freezing harbor air. Lock that weeping viol loop straight onto the master track sequence. No commercial compromises, no polished radio templates, strictly raw, heavy architectural weight from the waterfront grid. Listen close, listen close. Navigating the catwalk where the shadow line divides, tracking the cold blueprint where the independent resides. A slice the viol, a loop to the horsehead strings frayed, leaving a permanent stamp of the nocturnal decay. The hell-hit pulls the bass, walk slow through the grease-stained floor while the wind rattles through the massive steel bay door. The snare snaps vicious like an iron coupler locking, cutting straight through the garbage that the mainstream is hawking. We don't buy the digital hype or the playlist slots. We just carve the actual cipher in these forgotten spots. Just a midnight operator tracking lines in the damp air, exposing the skeletal system that the labels wouldn't dare. Scraping violet tones echoing through the concrete bay. Heavy drum pattern striking while the night fades to gray. We keep the frequency sovereign inside the industrial chest. Uncut acetate grip, put in the formulas to rest. Yeah, the shivering harbs fort, no floats on the parallel stem. Got an archive of raw pressure that I'll never yield to them. Strict territorial focus, indexing the harborfront split, refusing to compromise the script for their corporate benefit. We chop the minor interval until the playback ribbon slides, feeding raw, unpolished knowledge to where the underground resides. The 12% sample of punches with that authentic freight yard smoke. The exact type of winner catalog that the radio broke. Keep the heavy canvas deck jacket button tight to the jaw, watching how the commercial market exploits the raw until there's nothing left but static on the master tape track. We preserve the raw execution and we never look back. Scraping violet tones echoing through the concrete bay. Heavy drum pattern striking while the night fades to gray. We keep the frequency sovereign inside the industrial chest. Uncut acetate grip, putting the formulas to rest. Now the magnetic ribbon is winding down to the final turn, but the independent manuscript is safely locked in the urn. We leave the coordinates stamped deep in the concrete beam long after the
the metropolis wakes up from his digital dream. The kick drum is thumping like a heavy cargo elevator drop. A rugged monument built where the commercial trend stopped. The derangement slowly dissolves into the harbor fog hum. A cold reminder of where the actual poetry comes from. The guttural energy stays permanent, the focus is defined. The atrium blueprint is the only signal left behind. We drop down the fire escape ladder and vanish in the mist. Yeah, atrium logic. Let the vinyl static bleed out. Saturated tape friction. The atrium blueprint. Grid isolated. We out. Yeah.
The low. Hey yo, Junction Lodge.
Hey yo, 3:07 a.m. standing inside the hollow Vancho lobby of the abandoned Westchester Avenue train station, hidden deep in the South Bronx. An elegant, decaying masterpiece of red terracotta and brick designed by Cass Gilbert in 91908. Sitting suspended directly over the active Amtrak and CSX rail lines. Shattered arch windows framing the glowing red and green signals below. The heavy smell of diesel soot, damp weeds, rusted iron girders, coal dust and cold railway wind. Lock that weeping English horn loop straight onto the primary master rail. No commercial compromises, no polished radio templates, strictly raw architectural friction from the forgotten Bronx. Transit grid, listen close.
Yo, stepping past the warning gate where the masonry splits, isolating pure expression from their commercial hits. I chop the English horn till the wooden reed fractures, weaving a dense tapestry that the mainstream never captures. The heavy because the bass rumbles low through the floor. Joe is while the cold rain patters and the dark night moistens. The snare cracks sharp like a high voltage line snapping, puncturing the silence where the ghost trains are tracking. We don't scope the output for the playlist algorithms. We just capture the actual tension in these rugged rhythms. Just a Bronx phantom mapping footprints in the cold suit, leaving an indelible signature where the clean shoes can't foot.
Wretched labs drain the temper through the eye frame. Horn for horn phrases drifting through the iron frame. Heavy drum configurations hitting while the streets forget the name. We keep the frequency sovereign over the active track. Saturated tape friction, never holding back. Yeah, the shivering clavinet chord hovers on the auxiliary bus. Got a folder full of calculus that the editors can't adjust. Strict structural mapping, watching how the steel scales, documenting the exact point where their modern logic fails. We manipulate the sample till the pitch bends down in pain. Pouring raw unfiltered essence through the subterranean. Drain the vintage sampler hits with that authentic railway grease. A raw and polished northern broadcast designed to withstand the freeze. Wrap the heavy wool scarf tight against the railway chill. Looking out at the tracks where the quiet hours spill. Long before the digital network attempts to erase our trace, we solidify the standard in this dark abandoned space. Horn for horn phrases drifting through the iron frame. Horn for horn phrases drifting through the iron frame. Heavy drum configurations hitting while the streets forget the name. We keep the frequency sovereign over the active track. Saturated tape friction, never holding back. Now the reel spins down to the raw cardboard spindle end, but the frequency is locked where the corporate cannot bend. We leave the calculations etched deep in the terracotta tile. Long after the temporary metrics lose the superficial style. The kick drum is thumping like an old diesel dreader. Crank a solid monument recorded on an unlisted blank. The arrangement slowly dissolves into the cold trackside hiss. A stark documentation of the depth that the pop channels miss. Junction energy stays permanent, the focus is defined. The Westchester Codex is the only broadcast left behind. We scale a rusted staircase and vanish in the night. Status bleed out. Yeah. Junction lie, junction. Let the vinyl static bleed out. Saturated tape friction. The Westchester Codex, South Bronx isolation. We out.
The
for sharp. Metallic clinking of a rusted ammunition hoist. Chain swinging slowly inside a damp stone shaft, followed by the dry sweeping rustle of wild briar scraping the granite blocks in the coastal wind. A dusty low pass filter jazz clarinet loop crawls out from the dark. It's low register Chalamo notes breathe in the dark. Woody minor key phrase warped by heavy tape and grime. Mid is layered with the faint shivering vintage silent on the string, ensemble pad in the thick lumbering flat wound electric bass line that drops with a heavy unquantized drag without a single second of delay. The 93 EPM drum break drops, the kick hits boxy deep and heavily saturated at the lower frequencies while the snare snaps with a dry metallic crack over a continuous layer of thick vinyl crackle. A gritty low tone voice speaks instantly. 3:28 a.m. standing deep inside the dripping arch granite tunnels of the Civil War era fortification at Fort Tartan, hidden on the windswept edge of Bayside, Queens. A massive half-completed stone fortress swallowed by wild ivy and coastal fog. Empty gun casemates framing the black churning waters where the East River meets the Long Island Sound. The heavy smell of damp moss, old gunpowder, salt, decaying pine needles, and freezing sea spray. Lock that woody clarinet loop straight onto the master track sequence. No industry paint by numbers, no sanitized digital stems, strictly the raw heavy masonry of the fortification. Listen close. Stepping through the granite vaults where the battery bleeds, so in raw, unfiltered prose where the shoreline recedes. I slice the clarinet loop till the Chalamo notes bend, delivering the heavy truth that the critics can't defend. The flat one bass is driving low through the earth and floor, while the cold salt wind rattles the iron magazine door. The snare snaps vicious like an old rifle bolt action, cutting straight through their synthetic digital distraction. We don't seek the mainstream light or the playlist that slots. We just carve the actual cipher in these forgotten spots. Just a midnight operator dodging the Coast Guard beam, leaving permanent ink on a fragile commercial dream. Woody clarinet tones echoing through the arch vault, heavy drum pattern striking without a single fall. We keep the frequency sovereign where the dark waters meet, pure and airlog friction driving through the freeze and sleep. Yeah, the shivering Selena string path floats on a parallel stem, got an archival pressure that I'll never yield to them. Strict territorial focus, indexing the shoreline division, refusing to compromise the script for their corporate vision. We chop the minor interval until the playback ribbon slides, feeding raw and polished knowledge to where the underground resides. The vintage sample of thumps within the carbon smoke, the exact type of winter blueprint that the radio broke. Keep the heavy utility park zip tie for the sea breeze, watching how the industry makes the unshielded freeze until there's nothing left but static on the master tape track. We preserve the raw execution and we never look back. Clarinet tones echoing through the arch vault, heavy drum pattern striking without a single fall. We keep the frequency sovereign where the dark waters meet, pure and airlog friction driving through the freeze and sleep. Woody clarinet tones echoing through the arch vault, heavy drum pattern striking without a single fall. We keep the frequency sovereign where the dark waters meet, pure and airlog friction driving through the freeze and sleep. Now the magnetic ribbon is scraping on the final metal post, but the syllable remains sharp, guarding the Queen's coast. We leave the coordinates engraved deep in the granite wall, long after the superficial towers of the empire fall. The kick drum is thumping like a heavy mortar, breeze slam, a rugged monument rising over the highway in a dam. The arrangement slowly sinks into the morning tide. It's a cold reminder of the depth that the commercial channels miss. Fortress energy stays permanent, the target is defined, and Titus accuracy the only door can slink behind. We slip through the arch portal and vanish in the great. Yeah, Fortress logic. Let the vinyl static bleed out. Saturated tape friction. The Tartan cipher. Sector secured. We out. We out.